Elliot had never cared much for security cameras. He lived alone in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where nothing ever happened. But after a string of break-ins a few streets over, paranoia crept in. He bought a full home security system, motion detectors, reinforced locks, and, most importantly, cameras. The cameras were everywhere, one above the front door, another by the garage, two covering the backyard, and several inside. Living room, hallway, even his bedroom. The sales guy had pitched it as total peace of mind. Elliot didn't feel peaceful. He felt watched. Still, he figured he'd get used to it. The first few nights, everything was normal. No alerts, no movement. Just an empty yard and a quiet street. But on the fourth night, something changed. At 2:36 a.m., Elliot's phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. He sat up, hard hammering. The app opened to a grainy black and white feed of his porch. The camera's infrared lens picked up every detail. The porch light flickering, the wind shifting the welcome mat, and someone standing just outside the frame, a shadow. Elliot's pulse spiked. The figure wasn't moving, just standing there, inches from where the camera's field of view ended. A prank, he told himself. Maybe a kid messing around. He turned on the porch light. Nothing. He checked the camera feed again. The shadow was gone. His stomach twisted, but he forced himself to go back to bed. Probably nothing. Probably a tree casting a weird shadow. The next night, it happened again. 2:36 a.m. Motion detected. Front door. Elliot hesitated before looking at the camera feed. His porch was empty. But this time, the welcome mat was gone. Just gone. He hadn't heard anything. No footsteps. No sound of it being dragged away. A deep unease settled over him. He checked the rest of the cameras. Backyard, clear. Driveway, empty. Living room, quiet. But then he checked the hallway camera, and his blood turned to ice. Someone was inside. A shape stood in the shadows at the far end of the hall, barely visible. The figure was tall, too tall, its head nearly touching the ceiling. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there. Elliot grabbed the bat from under his bed. He didn't even think before storming into the hall, heart racing, ready to swing. But it was empty. He turned on every light, checked every door and window. All locked. No signs of forced entry. But the camera had seen something. He rewound the footage. The figure was there. And then, suddenly, it wasn't. One frame it stood, looming in the hallway. The next gone. No movement. No fade. Just missing. Elliot barely slept. The next day, he called the security company. "There's a glitch with my system," he said. "My cameras are picking up. I don't know. Shadows." The technician on the phone was polite but firm. "The system is working fine, sir. No reported malfunctions." "But are you sure you're not seeing reflections? Maybe a trick of the light?" Elliot clenched his jaw. "No. There was someone in my house." The tech hesitated. "Sir, your system's log doesn't show any entry. No alarms, no breaches. Are you sure you weren't dreaming?" He hung up. That night, Elliot didn't bother sleeping. He sat in his living room, bat in hand, watching the live feed. 2:36 a.m. Motion detected. Front door. Elliot's breath caught. The feed loaded. The porch was empty. Then why had the alert triggered? A pit formed in his stomach. He cycled through the other cameras. Backyard, empty. Garage, clear. Hallway. The figure was back. But this time, it was closer. It stood just outside his bedroom door. Unmoving, watching. Elliot's blood ran cold. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. He was right there, just beyond the door. If he reached out, then, on the screen. The figure tilted its head. Elliot bolted. He ran out of the house, out into the freezing night, not stopping until he was in the middle of the street. He turned back. His bedroom window was open. He hadn't opened it. The house loomed in silence. The cameras still streamed to his phone, but now, every feed was distorted. Then, one by one, the feeds went dark. He called the police. By the time they arrived, the house was empty. No signs of forced entry. Nothing stolen. Just one strange thing. The front door was wide open. "I swear someone was inside," Elliot told them. The officers sighed. "We get reports like this sometimes. Home security cameras pick up weird glitches. You're sure you didn't imagine it?" Elliot gritted his teeth. He knew what he saw. The officers checked the footage. It was gone. All of it. Every video from the past week. Erased. But the system hadn't been tampered with. The logs showed no deletions, no remote access. It was as if the footage had never existed. Elliot never went back home. He sold the house for cheap, left town, and didn't tell anyone where he was going. He tossed his phone in a dumpster, got a new number, and refused to install another security system. But it didn't matter, because it found him. Started small. A hotel room key in his pocket he didn't remember taking. A receipt for a gas station he'd never been to. A voicemail with nothing but static. Then, one night, he woke up to the feeling of being watched. He looked at the clock on his nightstand. 2:36 a.m. His motel room was silent, the door still bolted, the curtains shut. But his laptop was open. He never left it open. The screen was black except for a single message, typed into an empty document. "You can't run." His breath caught. The text erased itself, letter by letter, vanishing into the dark screen. Then, new words appeared. "Check the closet." Elliot's blood turned to ice. His eyes darted to the closet across the room. The door was open, just an inch. Had it been like that before? His heart pounded so hard he thought he might be sick. He reached for the lamp, hands shaking, and turned it on. Nothing. The closet was empty. But when he turned back to the laptop, the screen had changed. A video feed. Live. It was him. A grainy, black and white image of himself sitting on the bed, staring at the laptop. Elliot barely had time to process it before something moved in the background. Behind him. The closet door opened wider. And then, just before the screen glitched to black, he saw it. A figure. Stepping out. Reaching for him. The motel lights flickered. The air turned ice cold. And from the darkness behind him, just inches away, a voice whispering, "Found you." The screen went dark.